thank you for being here on this cold, snowy day. We appreciate you being here and look forward to telling you a little bit about communities and schools. Before we introduce our team, we would like to introduce and welcome Bill and Jean Milliken. Bill is the founder and vice chairman of Communities in Schools, and is one of the nation's foremost pioneers in the movement to give young people the help they need to graduate from high school and go on to rewarding lives. Bill's activism began in 1960 when he joined Young Life, an ecumenical youth organization. He helped initiate street academies for young people who had dropped out of school and wanted a chance to resume their education, as well as live-in programs for substance abusers and youth in need of shelter and support. His experiences led him to search for a comprehensive approach to helping young people. This search culminated in the 1970s with the development of a model program that repositioned existing community resources into schools, which became Communities in Schools network. Bill has led the organization as president until May of 2004. CIS is the nation's leading community-based organization with a mission of helping students achieve in school and prepare for life. Currently, the organization directly serves more than 1.26 million students and their families each year in more than 2,700 schools in 28 states and the District of Columbia. Notice I said the District of Columbia. Bill has served 3 U.S. presidents and has received numerous honors for his commitment to young people. Bill is the author of 4 books: So Long, Sweet Jesus, Tough Love, The Last Dropout, Stop the Epidemic, and From the Rearview Mirror, Reflecting on Connecting the Dots. Bill received an honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters in 2007 from Bard College. Bill's wife, Jean, is an Episcopal priest, having served in the Diocese of Washington and Virginia, and as a pastoral care counselor in private practice. Welcome, Bill and Jean.
I was actually born, thank you, out of St. Luke's Church in Atlanta, Georgia, Reverend Tom Bowers, where Jean and I went to church, and it was through his inspiration that she became one of the first Episcopal priests in the country. And CIS actually started in that church, as incubated, and then went inside the Atlanta public schools to where we began to grow it there, and then had the good fortune of meeting the Carters, and they took us nationally. And now we're here in DC. And during Jean's sabbatical, when she was here, we came to this church to hear our friend Tom Bowers, who introduced us to Louise Leon, and then now you all have been, along with Libby and the Gardners and that, being big backers of CIS here in the city. So I thank you. There's 2 key things about CIS to keep it simple. One is that we know kids have to get turned on to living before they get turned on to learning. That love's the only transformational thing we have. It's in that personal relationship. It's not a program that changes kids, it's relationships. And once they know somebody cares about them, then this other simple thing is we want them to have the resources that they need, whether it's food, clothing, housing, whatever it is. We bring all the services to the schools to free the teachers up to be teachers and the principals, principals. But we have our 2 leaders and one of their alumni here today, so just thank you.
Good morning. I'm very happy to introduce our speakers for this morning. who are all connected to the local affiliate CIS of the nation's capital. Dr. Rustin Lewis is the Executive Director of Communities and Schools of the nation's capital. He was raised in Gary, Indiana, in a family committed to volunteerism and community service. He has numerous degrees, a doctorate in public administration from the University of Baltimore, a master's of public administration, a bachelor degree in sociology from Clark Atlanta University. Monique Baker is the Director of Programs for Communities and Schools of the nation's capital. She holds a master's degree in social work from Catholic University of America. She is a licensed practitioner with over 15 years experience with youth and family programs, and she has served in the past as a site coordinator and connected school manager at Cardozo Education Campus. And Yohanna M'Bedgue came several years ago from Cameroon to the United States. At that time, she started at Cardozo School in the 6th grade and knew no English. She graduated in 2023, and she is currently at American University getting a degree in public health. So I'd like you to welcome Dr. Lewis as our first speaker.
Good morning. Good morning. All right, there we are. First and foremost, I want to thank the congregation for inviting Communities and Schools of the nation's capital to be here this morning. Thank you very much. Bill and Jean, thank you for being here. Thank you for your vision, which allows all of us to be here and to lead this very important organization. My name is Rustin Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of CIS of the nation's capital. CIS is an independent, our CIS of the nation's capital is an independent 501c3 organization. We serve the DC area. Our mission is to surround students with a community of support to help them get through school and on and succeed in life. We do this a couple of ways, and I'm sort of skipping a little bit about the national piece since you spoke about that, Bill, but again, we're a national model. There are 200 affiliates around the country that are all providing integrated services, and that's what we're doing here in DC as well. The success of our program really is rooted in 3 areas. We have some tremendous partnerships that allow us to leverage resources to bring into the schools. A great example of that is recently Amazon donated 4,000 school bags for our students. United Way has donated hygiene kits. We have mentoring and tutoring programs that we're able to leverage across our schools. The second pillar or tier of our organization is that we have what we call a feeder pattern, a feeder strategy. And the idea is that we're able to work with students from K through 12. So if a student is enrolled at Burville Elementary School in Ward 7, they then graduate and move on to Kelly Miller Middle School, and then graduate and move on to high school at H.D. Woodson. Well, we have site coordinators in each one of those schools. So not only are we able to address the needs of the individual student as they progress, but their entire family. So sometimes we're serving more than one sibling in a school. And third, and I'll say what I believe is what's most important about our organization and its success, are our site coordinators. Our site coordinators are trained professionals, highly educated, who have a passion for this work, and I can't emphasize that more. These professionals get up every day, and they are embedded in the school system. So every morning, 8 o'clock, they're there just like the school teachers. And they're there case managing about 10% of the school population. They're providing whole school and targeted programming. They're also mobilizing resources based upon the needs assessment that they conduct. These professionals, I call them superheroes, because that's what they are. They have a true commitment to the organization and the mission. CIS of the nation's capital is serving roughly 4,000 students across the city. We have 10 partnering schools. About 85% of our students are men or boys. About 75% of our students are students of color. And we have seen success. So what, we can throw out data, but what does it really mean? 99% of our students, our case managed students, move from one grade to the next, are promoted from one grade to the next. Last year, 100% of our case managed students graduated and went on to college and/or a professional career. That's the impact of CIS. Last year, I was very fortunate to have a longtime former site coordinator, then connected school manager, and now director of programs join our organization. As Livy said, she has a master's in social work from Columbia. She's a licensed social worker, and that adds more depth to our program. So, as my mentor once told me, if you want to give a great, memorable presentation, follow the 5 B's. And he put his hand on my shoulder when I was about 20 years old, and he said, "Be brief, brother, be brief." So I conclude with that and ask Ms. Baker to join me here at the mic.
Good morning. Thank you all again for inviting us today, and special thanks to Livy and Ann, who have been supporters of our organization long before I joined 10 years ago, and who are the most amazing volunteers I've ever had. So my name is Monique Baker. I'm a native Washingtonian and a product of DC Public Schools. As a youth, I had a real desire to give back to my own community, and I did youth work in Columbia Heights, where I'm from. And I was in high school, and I had a job at a local nonprofit organization. And I was having a conversation with my own mentor about career options, and she's like, you really have a heart to serve. I think you should be a social worker. And so that sort of set me on a path of becoming a social worker. And once I became licensed and I got my degree, I decided that I wanted to go into public service, that maybe if I work at a government organization, that would be sort of the key, to me sort of accessing my community in a really powerful and meaningful way. And so I started off my career at Child and Family Services. And after the 3rd year and the 4th year, I was like, this is not enough. I could do more. And I really felt like I needed to find an organization that better aligned with my own personal and professional values and just sense of purpose, while I still had the momentum of just youth and wanting to do good. And so I met the program manager at the time. Her name was Jennifer, and she told me about CIS, and I had to make a really bold decision to leave public service and my dad would say my good government job to do something I believed in, and so I did. And I'm happy to say this is my 10th year with CIS, the nation's capital, and it's the best decision I've ever made in my life. I was assigned to the school maybe around 5 blocks from my house in Columbia Heights, Cardozo Education Campus. So not only were these kids, students who really needed the support, but they were my neighbors, their families were my neighbors. And I felt, I just felt like it very much aligned with, my own personal purpose. And I felt like these kids' lives were connected to my own, and that their success was the success of my community. And my greatest hope was that they become leaders and change makers in my community. And I'm glad to say that over the years, I've been able to see that. And that's what keeps me here, is that, I see our kids go on to do amazing things and also develop a heart for service for their community. I've been assigned this morning to just go over our model and to speak a little bit about how CIS operates. In the spring of each year, we do we do a lot of community mapping, and we do a needs assessment. So we're talking to various stakeholders in the school community about what the priorities should be for the year. And as you can imagine, school by school, community by community, those priorities might change. But I think that's what's great about our full service community school model, is that it's very individualized to the community that we're working with. And we try to be very engaged with not only school leaders, but those outside of the community and families and students about really identifying pain points in the community that need additional support, but also to identify what strengths are innate to the community that we could use and leverage for the best interests of the students. And so in the spring of every year, we're doing focus groups and interviews and surveys, and we're sitting down with folks together and having really productive conversations about what CIS can offer and how we can support, but how we can incorporate this whole community into a plan. And typically by the beginning of the summer, we're sitting down with the principal and we're presenting the findings of that community mapping and assessment, and we start building out our goals for the year. And I always tell people that CIS can do a lot. Like, we have the capacity to work on a lot of things. It could be, violence prevention. It could be attendance. It could be course performance. It could be family engagement. But when I sit down and talk to school leaders and community members, I say CIS is a fine dining restaurant as opposed to the McDonald's menu. We could give you a lot, but if you give us maybe 4 or 5 things that we could work on throughout the school year, you're going to get a great product. Every time it's going to be consistent and good quality. And so sometimes principals like, we need these 10 things done, but I really try to encourage them to stick to maybe 4 or 5 goals that we could really produce results on, and that we could track those deliverables throughout the year. So there are 3 tiers of support that we work on throughout the school year. The first tier of support is like whole school supports that sort of uplift the whole school community. And that might look like basic needs closet. So the kids who don't have uniforms or don't have access to regular hygiene products or maybe warm blankets or coats always have access to them. Any kid in the building can go to their site coordinator and pick one up if they need it. We also do a lot of food markets across our sites. So for example, at Cardozo, there's a monthly food market that we get volunteers from St. John's to come and help us bag groceries. And so we do it in 2 ways. We give out bags at the front door so kids can grab and go. But if parents need to come and they want to do their own shop, that food is available for them to come in the afternoon after work and shop for food. And like I said, those resources are available to any kid. They don't have to do anything other than be a student at that school. A lot of our schools are plagued by food insecurity. A lot of our kids are displaced for a variety of reasons. This year in particular, a lot of our kids who have been newly immigrated to the country have had a lot of issues around sort of displacement and homelessness. And so what we've done is been able to provide some crisis services for kids who have immediate needs, because we're in a position where we're always sort of preparing for that. And so as the schools have seen this influx, we've been a reliable partner to get the resources they need so kids can settle and participate in the regular academic day. At the tier 2 level, we're providing interventions for kids with a common need. So especially this year, what that looks like is kids that need mental health and social emotional support, kids that have been adversely affected by things like violence and might need a grief group, or kids that are returning to the building from being court involved and need support sort of reintegrating in the school community and feeling a sense of belongingness, and a touch point with an adult who's positive and could put them on a trajectory to make different and better choices. We also, at that Tier 2 level, are working really closely with kids who are chronically truant and disengaged, so kids who may be off track for graduation or promotion because they haven't been coming to school, because we have the flexibility to go out in the community and we know they might be hanging out at Chick-fil-A, we could go out and get them and bring them back to school, we're well connected with the community that we serve, and so, somebody might give us some information and say, this kid is hanging out at Fort Totten Station. Ms. Baker, can you go and check and see about them? That's something that we are able to do and try to get them re-engaged in school and sort of back on track. So we're doing a lot of that work with targeted groups of kids who have the same goal. And at the Tier 3 level, which is intensive case management, we're providing sort of comprehensive support to kids who are in high need. Like Dr. Lewis said, that's about 10% of the school population. A lot of our schools want to push us to serve more, but I always say, my staff, for the type of work that we're doing at that level, we can only accommodate about 10% of the school staff, but what we've been doing this year is that we've been engaging social work students as interns so that we can increase caseloads at schools with a large enrollment. And so that really encompasses, monitoring their attendance, monitoring things like their academic progress. We're talking to their parents on a regular basis. If they need navigation to services, if they're experiencing homelessness, or if they're experiencing mental health issues, or they have high need, but they haven't tapped into locally available services. The site coordinator really navigates them through that. And because we have relationships with local agencies, usually it's not like a cold handoff. We know a person at the agency, they're going to support them sort of through it, and if hiccups happen along the way, we can sort of intervene and support families. I think another part of the work that we're doing is, especially during the pandemic, trying to reintegrate parents in the process of education, giving them opportunities to be in the building, and really supporting them in becoming leaders, so that they can sort of be a driving force in changing the building is something that we're really invested in. So a lot of our site coordinators are involved in family leadership teams. They sit on grade level teams. Typically, our site coordinators are the leaders of or supporting student wellness and attendance teams. So like I said, our site coordinators are well integrated. They're there at arrival until after school most days, prepared to sort of meet the kids where they are, but also meet the school where they are, to sort of supporting their needs across the board. In the service of everybody's best success. Today, we've also brought one of our alumni, so I'd like to bring her up. Dr. Lewis and I can always sort of talk about the organization and what it does and how it works, but I think this is just an opportunity for her to talk about her experience with CIS and why she's still sort of connected to the program.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity that you gave me here. My name is Yohanna. I came to the U.S. 5 years ago. I was actually in 8th grade. I came around the winter. It was very cold, like right now. So I was kind of I wasn't really a social person by that time. We changed. I'm social right now. You can trust me. I had a friend. She was a very good friend of mine. She's still a very good friend of mine. She's from Nigeria. She grabbed my hand, actually. I didn't want to talk to nobody. She grabbed my hand. She was like, I'm going to present you to one person that I love very much. She always supported me. She grabbed my hand. She brought me to Miss Monique's office. And I sat down. Miss Monique was like, how are you? How you been? I was like, I'm good. Then she was like, okay, talk to me. I'm here for you. She gave me a simple paper sheet with a pen. I was drawing, taking my time. It was after school, I think. So during that time, I became really close to Miss Monique. And I remember my very first gift from her was some type of boots, because I didn't have boots, and it was the winter, and I first arrived here. I still have them, though. They're very precious to me. So during that time, I felt really supported emotionally and physically. Then, of course, the pandemic hit. We went home. I wasn't really that strong with my English. I was speaking French. That's my first language. So during the pandemic, my dad lost his job, and I needed support with my medicine because I have nocturnal epilepsy. And my dad was looking for help, and he remembered that he always had that one person that was always helping me when I was in school. So he contacted Miss Monique and told her about my problem, and then she was, why she didn't tell me? I was like, I'm not gonna tell you because it's just like I am putting some weight on your shoulder. And she made this safe place for me to tell her about my sickness, how I feel. And since that time, I really felt like I was supported mentally, physically, emotionally. And as we came back to school, I became closer and closer to her. I used to go to her office whenever I felt like I needed help, I need support. Like, actually, my glasses that I have right now, I got it from her. And my jacket that is actually outside hanging out. I was just thinking about it when she was just speaking right here. And right now that I'm in American University, if you look at my picture over there, she helped me with most of the things that I have there. And one day, I remember since I came to AU, American University, I was like, I'm tired of eating this processed food. I think I need food. And she was like, what do you need? Just make a list. I'm coming. And I just got out of class. I wasn't feeling that well. And then she made a special delivery for me. I felt so special that day. And whenever I can go to her office, she's just, yeah, you can pass by. I went to her office this winter break. I just sat down there looking at her working. I was actually working on some school stuff. So it's like you don't have to always give physical support to students. Emotional support is also a huge thing. And I know a lot of my friends that needed that, but whenever I recommend them to like CIS, site coordinator, they always give me like a good review about them. So I can't say anything negative about them. They're actually everything to me. Thank you.
I'm so happy to hear the stories of these three people. We have some time for questions, and so I'm wondering if all three of you could come up and people can address questions to you.
I do not have a question, but when I entered the room and I was looking at your photos and I asked you to describe what all of the colors and all of the medals meant, I think I learned that you were salutatorian of your class after arriving 5 years earlier. I just wanted the room to know.
think I understood you to say that you are facing an influx of people from other countries. I'm assuming that part of the immigration issues that have been exported to different metropolitan areas is a piece of this. And I guess I'd just like to hear more about how that affects the schools and, of course, what you're doing. And we are so moved by the vast needs you're describing and your approach to giving them. Just thank you.
Yeah, Livia and Ann know a little bit about this. So when we got back from the pandemic, and we started to feel the impact of the busing, because we have a site coordinator at Cardozo specifically who works in the International Academy. And the International Academy works with kids who have newly immigrated to the country. And so we have kids come, but usually on a sort of regular pace. But in one day, we got maybe 20 kids. And they had nothing but the clothes on their backs, and it wasn't really appropriate for the weather. They were all living at a motel on New York Avenue. They didn't have access to laundry or food. I want to say DHS went out there for a while to sort of do some immediate care. But after a while, they sort of said, we're going to look to local agencies to sort of deal with the issues related to need. And so that first year, I want to say, every kid that came through Cardozo or came through, kids went to some of our other schools like Kelly Miller, Woodson, Eastern, because there weren't any organizations in the building that could deal with the immediate need. Like sometimes kids needed things that day, and the school just didn't have it. And so they looked to us to sort of fill in those gaps. And then other issues came up, like kids not having access to health care. And some kids came with chronic health issues, like issues with, one kid had a tumor that was untreated. And so one thing that we needed help with was like helping with kids sort of helping families fill out applications for emergency Medicaid. But because it was some of the, I want to say, like the satellite sites to get help were still closed, they couldn't go. And so we just had to work family by family, getting things like access to health care, appropriate clothing, and if we gave them a uniform or clothes, making sure that they had resources so that they could wash those clothes and that kids could come to school clean. I think the issue right now is things like housing, and people they can't access work. And so we have a bunch of families not living in appropriate housing or doubling or tripling or quadrupling up in a small place. We had one family living in like a dining room. And then also there's been interrupted education with a lot of the kids. So they might come from Guatemala. In the last grade they completed was maybe 3rd grade, but they're starting them in school in the 9th grade. And giving them 4 years to get a diploma, and so they need a lot of support. And so we do a lot of academic interventions around high impact tutoring to help instructors. So we do both push-in and pull-outs, and then homework help after school. So the instructor's in the building, and then we'll organize for tutors to go in the classroom to help kids because they're behind, or sometimes pull them out to help them because language barriers, and then support after school with like completing homework.
Do you have enough Spanish-speaking, help to do some of this stuff?
We do the best we can. We do have Spanish-speaking staff. And like I said, most of our kids are at Cardozo, where we have 2 Spanish-speaking staff available to support with what the school needs are.
I wanted to compliment something you mentioned earlier, which is that you don't try to be all things to all people. I'm sure you have to push back, as you mentioned, when you're putting those plans together. I think that's so important. But having said that, what would it take for you to have even greater success, penetration with more students, faculty? Do we need, is it funding for more Monique Bakers, across the District of Columbia, or maybe some other issues? And on a related note, what are other obstacles, that you all might identify that could help you do even more, achieve even more impact? Because it's so impressive what you've done so far.
Thank you. I'll take this one. Thanks, Monique. Well, resources is always limited for all nonprofits, but for our organization in particular, only because there's so much need in this city. We're serving 4,000 students, 10% of the population. So take, for example, Eastern High School. Our case manager can't possibly manage 90 students on a caseload. So we added another student who's actually he was an intern, he's now an employee of the organization. We added him back in September. So my vision is to grow this organization. How do we serve more kids? How do we go deeper in the schools we're in, but also expand? So that's sort of our vision forward. In terms of critical needs, I think Monique joining our team was a tremendous asset. Not only does she have years of experience as a site coordinator, she's able to educate as an administrator now about the growth opportunities for this organization and about some of the challenges that they experience on the ground. But she also brings that social work background, which is allowing us to dig deeper and provide those interns across the city. So I think those are probably our immediate challenges and how we've been addressing them in the short term, but always resources is always a limited option.
Are your interns high school students or college?
They're college. Actually, they're working on their master's, so she's supervising them in addition to helping me manage the other site coordinators, so we have long days.
Does your organization advise Mayor Bowser's administration about educational policy, violence prevention initiatives, and the like?
I can only tell you about the last 4 years that I've been with the organization. We are a part of working with the State Board of Education around strategies for reducing chronic absenteeism. So it's not directly Mayor Bowser's administration, but certainly working with local government to provide strategies for what's working for us that's been effective, and that the city will probably adapt many of our strategies, or some of our strategies.
Thank you very much. You all spoke to the power of mentorship in your talks, and I'm wondering, is that a part of your strategy going forward, especially for those graduates you said who have gone on? Is there a greater opportunity there as well?
So what I understand from my time with CIS is that this organization is not, programs are not about people, they're about relationships, right, Bill? I got that from Bill. So I use that to answer your question. I think we have to always have mentoring mentoring and the relationship building component is what makes this organization work. Those site coordinators who are on the ground know their students, they know what their needs are, and they're being responsive, not just in terms of saying, hey, you need a mentoring program, or hey, you need tutoring, but they know sort of the holistic situation, whether it's crisis at home or crisis at school. And they're not just saying, well, your grades are low, why are your grades low, let's get your tutor. They're saying, let's also look at some of the systemic issues that you're facing. Monique, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's just, so because of the relationship aspect of our work, like it's not sort of focused just on the service. That's why I'm still connected, because it doesn't end, it doesn't stop. Once they graduate, it continues. Like Dr. Lewis was saying, we have another alumni who I mentored through college, and now he's a site coordinator. It's just the nature of the work that we do. And it's not always necessarily formal, but it tends to, it just happens,
You mentioned the fact that many of the students have experienced violence, and I wonder if you could just speak briefly about restorative justice and other approaches to traumatized children.
So I think, especially being a social worker, this summer what we really focused on was our work being very trauma-informed. Most of our students have been directly or indirectly sort of impacted by community violence, either in the school or outside the school or at home. And of course, you've all seen things that have happened in the news. And what we've chosen really to focus on is through our case management process, teaching things like empathy, making that a priority. And I think even the nature of our model, making sure that kids' basic needs are met, really indicates to a lot of them that they're important, that their needs are important, and that's even transformative, because if you don't think that you're worthy or important, it affects the way that you interact with the world and with other people. But when you know that you're cared for, that somebody feels a responsibility to you, that that you have purpose. I've seen sort of the level of hope sort of change, in kids about their future, because I think not a lot of people have told them that they have, a purpose outside of outside the now. That their life is not sort of determined by their circumstances, that there is a future, there is something to hope for, that they can dream bigger. And I feel like site coordinators really light that sort of fire and bring to light other options. And so especially in our Tier 2 interventions, when we're doing violence interruption through things like restorative justice, which all of our site coordinators are trained in, when we create things in the building like peace rooms for kids to practice mindfulness, it really matters, and it sort of slows them down to sort of be more thoughtful about their life. And I feel like it's really making an impact.
I just want to thank the congregation for having us here today. Thank you, Yohanna. I know it's hard for students to get up in the morning, so I appreciate you being here. Monique, thank you. Ann, Livy, thank you. Bill and Jean, thank you for being here, and thank you for all that you do for communities and schools of the nation's capital.